Somebody once said that the church is never going to see revival until this sexual immorality is dealt with. We as men have to step up and be spiritual high priests of our home, of our churches. It is repenting and bowing before God and being honest with God, and then being honest with your wife and seeking out a discipleship relationship that you can get involved in. Man's heart is a warrior heart, right? Wild at heart, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it broke me. It broke me what I had done.
Now he's my hero. God has changed us. He's transformed us.
It is changing.
And I love him more today than ever.
It's amazing. The mercy of God is just awesome.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome.
Who would have ever thought we'd go from porn to pastor?
Welcome to the Freedom and Faith podcast. I'm joined by Wayne and Sue Andresma, who volunteer here at the ministry, who I'm very good friends with. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are obviously married to each other, and Wayne, you're the pastor of a church here in Grand Rapids, the Pier.
Yeah, the Pier Church. And
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Absolutely. So Sue and I will be married for 45 years in April. And we have 3 children and 15 grandchildren. And so they are a joy of our life. We love being part of the ministry at the Pier and also volunteering here. And so our life is to serve Jesus Christ. And so we're excited about what we're doing. So
How did you guys come to know Christ?
Okay, well, when I was about 8 years old, my mom and dad would always watch Billy Graham when he came on TV, so that was we must do this. And I remember one night we watched him, and he gave the call like he always does at the end of his time. And I just went into my room, and I got on my knees, and I just asked Jesus to come into my heart. And I can remember it vividly. And he did. And from that moment on, he's been working on me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wayne, how did you come to know the Lord?
I was 15 years old, and I had come home late from playing football on a Sunday afternoon, and my parents had left for church. And so I sat in the doorway, and I said, well, if I don't go to church once, it's no big deal. And I stood there at 15 years old longer, and a question came into my mind that I don't believe was for me, and that was, well, why do you go? Do you go to make your parents happy? Do you go to look good? Or do you go because there's something personal between you and me? And so I put my 1.5-inch heels on and my bell-bottom pants and my silk shirt. It was the 70s, and I ran a half mile to church. Probably for me, the most amazing thing was 10 years later. I'm telling the story, and my dad is sitting next to me. He says, do you want to hear the rest of the story? I said, what do you mean? He said, I remember that day. He said, your sister had run away from the Lord and from us, and now my son was not worshiping with us. And so he said he put his head in his hands, and he cried these words out, Lord, don't let Wayne go. Don't let him go. He said the moment he picked his head up from his prayer, I sat down next to him.
Wow.
And that's the God I serve, one who's been chasing me my whole life. And so that is how I came
That's awesome.
to that moment. Yep.
How did you guys get to know each other? How did you get married?
I was about 12 years old, and my mom was coming down with early onset Alzheimer's, so she was sick through my whole teenage years. So I had my sisters and brother were married, and I was home alone with my dad. Brought up in a good Christian home, but I was taking a walk on this particular day and with a friend, and we were walking through a park, and this little kid, he was on a break from his cadets meeting, and he ran out of the building, and he started chasing us, and he chased us back to her home, and he talked to me through the screen door, got my number, and then he called me for 2 weeks, and he took me out for a Coke, and he did flips in my front yard, and he called me one day to go roller skating, and I couldn't go. I had a friend over, and then he never called me again. And you can pick up when we were 18.
So
years
yeah,
later.
and that was probably better for Sue because those 6 years from 12 to 18 were tough years in my life. Very rebellious years, but it was 18 years old. I had a diamond on layaway for a girl that I was going to marry right out of high school. And it was January 1978, and I'm working at Meijer, and in walks this blonde. And immediately I knew who she was. And so I went to her friend Leslie, who I worked with, and I said, "That's Sue Maring, isn't it?" She says, "Yeah, how do you know?" And I said, 12 years old in 2 weeks. And so she said, "I'm telling her." And so then on February 14th, Valentine's Day, I went into the same store that we had a Coke in when we were 12 years old to get my mom a Valentine's card, and there Sue sits at the counter. And so I sat down and talked with her for a half hour, but I still had a diamond on layaway, so I was not thinking anything like that. Men are kind of clueless at times. And so that summer, broke it off with that gal. And I asked a friend of mine who knew Sue, and I said, "Do you think she would date me?" And he said, "Yeah, she's heavy with a guy." And like normal, I don't listen to others usually. And so I went into the hardware store she worked and asked her out. And so on August 3, 1978 was our first date. And we dated for 3 years, and we're married.
Wow. How old were you guys when you got married?
21.
21. That's young.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got married.
Yeah.
Did you guys have kids right away?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, within about a year and a half, we had our first child, a little girl.
Okay.
And then after I had my third child, who was also a little girl, fast forward a little bit, something happened in our marriage that was really, really hard.
Tell us about that.
I was sleeping. My husband had gone to visit my dad in the hospital, who had just had a stroke. And it was about midnight, and he came flying into the bedroom, and he flipped the light on. He said, "Honey, I've got to tell you something." Okay. Go ahead.
Well, you go ahead and tell him what I told you. It's all right.
I think that I'm going to be in trouble because I have an addiction to pornography, and I was just at some apartments looking through a window, and somebody saw me, and I think he followed me home.
So the backside to that story is the fact that I was born to a 19-year-old woman, and so I was adopted. She gave me up for adoption. 6.5 years later, she committed suicide. I didn't know her at that time. Found that out later. But in being in an adopted home is a wonderful thing, but I really struggled with identity. I didn't feel like I fit in the world at all. At 11 years old, the year before I met Sue for the first time, I found something that I thought gave me identity, and that was pornography. And I thought, well, here finally somebody wants me and loves me. And I bought that lie for about 18 years of my life. And so, yeah, I remember that night as though it was yesterday. I had come home, and my issue was that I believed that once I was legally married, then that whole desire for pornography would be gone.
Yeah.
And, of course, it didn't. And so it's about 2 years after we were married that I began to act out again. And it was 8 years into our marriage in 1988 when I was arrested for this. And so, yeah.
And I knew nothing about it. I had no idea that he was addicted to pornography. It never came up.
She had no idea.
On the day he was arrested, you found out about this secret sin.
Correct.
How'd you feel?
I felt hurt, angry. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I didn't measure up. I think a lot of women that go through this feel that same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what took place over the next few months, years?
So, she had said something to me that was huge, and that was, Wayne, if you don't repent, this is not going to work. And so I had a decision to make. Would I humble myself truly before God, or was I just sad because I had gotten caught? And so I made a phone call to a friend in Lansing. I didn't realize that his life was also immersed in sin. And so he never called me back. And then there was a guy at church by the name of Dave, and Dave came into my life. And he had, that summer, he had asked me if we would look at starting an accountability program together. And I said I didn't need it. And now I called him and said, Dave, remember you had said something about accountability. I think I need that in my life. And so that began a 2-year journey in which Dave and I walked together. And
in the midst of this, we had to do counseling. We had to pay a fine, which we weren't financially well off at that point in our life either. So that was a little bit of a hardship. I wouldn't go to court with you. I said, you're on your own, baby. I'm not going. So you're going to have to figure this one out. I love you and I'll stick with you and I forgive you. But I had a lot to work through too, which I didn't realize at the beginning that, you know, I would put his sin up here and mine down here. And that needed to change.
Wayne, how did you feel when all of this came out?
well, of course, it's the initial realization that you've been discovered. And I felt like, you know, this is over with. She's probably going to leave me, and my life is over with. I don't know if anybody has ever felt like, you know, you're dry in the mouth. You just feel like you're hopeless, like there's no future.
Even physically, you had a reaction. You had a really bad rash.
Yeah, I got a rash. Oh, yeah.
Bad reaction on your skin.
Amazing reaction.
Yeah, awful stress.
You know, I think that with Dave coming into our lives and discipling us, the hope began to spur up. He was not easy on me. He gave me Malachi 2, which says, you know, you bathe the altar with your tears, and yet you say that I don't listen to you. It's because you have been unfaithful to the wife of your youth. And I mean, those words just absolutely spoke directly into my life because she is the wife of my youth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it just began a journey of memorizing scripture, being challenged. I wish I could tell you that absolutely everything went away. It did not. There was a struggle. I had to come back to Dave and tell him time and time again, yeah, I sinned this week. And so it was hard to do that. I found it interesting. It was harder to tell a human that I had sinned than it seemed to be to tell God, which seems opposite. But I think sometimes we live in a shadowland before the Lord where we can tell him stuff, but then we don't feel any effect's going to come out of it. But if you tell a human, all of a sudden it becomes more real in front of your eyes. So I think that's the beauty of discipleship, is it takes the reality of your relationship with God, makes it real through a relationship with a human.
No, I totally agree with that. I found something similar in my own life. Yeah. So how long was it uphill from there? What did it look like?
I would say it was at least a 10-year journey that we were on. It didn't get better overnight. He relapsed time and time again, and I had to forgive him time and time again. I think I began to get a little bit bitter, and there was a point, we had moved to Zealand. He was working at a church in Zealand as a youth director, and there was a night that I was just angry, and he couldn't do anything right in my eyes at this point, even though we were seeing a counselor, and it was just hard. And I remember reading this book called The Power of a Praying Wife, and it really did change me. The first chapter is about his wife, but at the end of this, it's a prayer for your husband. It was about his wife, but at the very end, in the last paragraph, it said, and give him a new wife, and let it be me. And I felt the Lord saying to me, pray this prayer every day. And I said, oh, all right, I'll pray it. Won't mean a word of it. Just need you to know that, God. I won't mean it. But as I was faithful in praying that every day, God began to change me and to the point that he even noticed it. We were given a night away at a bed and breakfast from some
Let me
friends.
lead up to that too, because
Okay, go ahead.
I'm leading up. You asked me what was, what did I experience, what I feel up. She talked about anger and bitterness. I think with me, especially feeling like I didn't fit into the world, I in some instances went and still tried to protect myself, tried to kind of pulled away a bit. So I was still not fully open with her, and which I think perpetuated
Yeah.
the sin,
Right.
and didn't allow it to just be cut off and burned, because this sin needs to be dragged out in the street and shed with the light, and I was not letting that happen. But at the same time that she was reading Power of a Praying Wife, I read a book, because what had happened was we weren't sleeping with each other.
Okay.
I was sleeping on the couch, she was sleeping in the bedroom, and it had gotten so bad in our marriage.
So things weren't getting better.
No, they were not.
They're getting
they
worse.
they were coming out more and more. The bones were being dug up, and nothing was happening to resolve them. And so I was reading a book, and it said in there, or the Lord said to me, if you don't go in and sleep with your wife, you are telling your wife you're not fighting for your marriage. And so our nights became nights of her locking the door, me going up and getting the key to the door, unlocking it, put it back where it belongs, and then going in and sleeping with her. And she would say, what are you doing in here? I said, I'm going to sleep with you. She says, I don't want you with me. I says, I understand that. And that just became night after night. So then we were seeing a counselor at the time, and God was doing a work in our lives. And so somebody had given us a bed and breakfast. And it was the first time in a long time where we rejoined in intimacy with each other. And the next morning, we were having breakfast, and I said, before we eat and pray, I said, I have to ask you something. Something's changing in our marriage. And I says, what is it? And so she revealed the book to me and what God had been doing in her heart. I told her what had been happening in my heart to fight for us again. And
He was just revealing my sin to me because I was
God was.
becoming, angry and bitter. And I had to, at the foot of the cross, put our sin on level ground. His sin was no greater than mine. And so once I realized that is when I think the healing really began. And I could actually really pray for him and mean it. And I could really forgive him.
Right. I think biblically speaking, I think of if you want to help your brother remove the speck from his own eye, you must first remove the plank from your own eye.
Right.
And you'll see clearly to remove the plank, the speck from your brother's eye. That's really powerful. So did this start after this bed and breakfast? Did you guys start to see growth in your marriage after that?
Yeah. It was shortly after that I resigned from my position at North Holland.
And you were in ministry.
I was at ministry.
In ministry, serving during some of this, right?
Sure. But I had resigned from North Holland, and I didn't have a job. We lived in a farmhouse, and I started working for the trash company. And one story out of it. So what's in trash, right? Porn. So it was just very interesting that I saw magazines after magazine. In fact, I remember this specific event that happened. I went and dumped a trash can, and it was only half full with all porn. And, of course, the flesh side of it goes, oh, paradise, you're going to have a ball. But then it hit me, wait a minute. What about the family? What I've been through, they are either going through or will go through. And my heart was changed. And I went up to the door and knocked on it. And the lady came to the door, and I said, hey, I'm your trash man. Think about that introduction. And I said, I just want you to know that I just found a can half full of pornography. And I said, I want to know if you guys are okay. And she said, oh, yeah, I buy it for him. And my heart sank. And so for a brief moment, I said, I had an 18-year addiction to porn. It almost destroyed our marriage. And I just want you to know I'm praying for you.
Wow.
I don't know what happened after that. I never saw them again. But yes. So yeah, we saw a huge change in our lives. And even the time in the trash can, the Lord reaffirmed that you're on the right path. Keep following me. So,
How did you see spiritual warfare play into some of this?
I think I saw in me spiritual warfare was the anger I was holding on to toward my husband during that time. That was really hard. It's hard to trust when somebody has just hurt you so badly. It's just hard to trust them again.
Yeah.
So I struggled with anger. Bitterness, I think I worked through that. This just doesn't get better overnight. It's a process. And whenever we counsel with people, we always just say to them, don't get discouraged because this is a journey. And you can get through it, but it's hard. And Satan knows all your buttons to push, and he will push them. And how do you get through that? It's through prayer. It's through time in the Word, being intimate with our Heavenly Father.
Right.
That's the only thing that got me through it.
Right. Repentance and confession in your own life, which is
Absolutely.
amazing because you're dealing with the sin of your husband too. So humbling
And trying to find the good in Him because there's so much good in Him.
Yeah.
And praising Him for the times that He had victory because He did.
Right.
You know, it wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
Those 10 years weren't all horrible. But there were moments that it was very hard.
Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. What about for you, Wayne?
Well, I think, again, the spiritual warfare comes in from the hiddenness. You know, when you're hiding, first you feel like you don't fit in the world.
Right.
And, I think the evil one likes to keep it buried. So there was just a constant draw to hide. And so for me to become vulnerable and open and real was just an amazing struggle in my life. I think, one of the things that was spiritual warfare also was generational, and that is the fact that when I discovered the information about my mother, I came to understand that she was raped by her step-grandfather when she was young. So there was sexual abuse in my background I didn't know about, and then she got pregnant outside of marriage and then married the man, and my sister's 3 years older than me, and then they divorced, and then she had an affair and had me, and so, so I think there was also some generational sin there that as I discovered that, I go, okay, all right, so I need to break some of these ties too in my life. And it's interesting because I'm still in a relationship with my sister, and I'm wanting her to come to FIF because she has also generational sin that she's still battling with. And so so those are probably the two major things that I saw in regards to that. And discipleship is amazing because it forces you to open up. And I mean, it's just so important to be in a discipleship relationship with another man.
Yeah.
And
And
two
I
warriors together.
totally agree.
Oh,
What brought you guys to Freedom and Faith? How did you get started in this kind of ministry?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I hope that pastors can hear this. So I had gotten the book Bondage Breaker by Neil Anderson when I was in youth. And
Youth ministry?
Yep, youth ministry. I never read it.
Okay.
But I remember getting it.
Okay.
And then going forward, we're starting this church. We're 12 years old at the pier.
Okay.
And probably our second or third year, I was teaching with another woman who was who had graduated from Calvin Seminary. And in our teaching, we were teaching the book Bondage Breaker.
Oh, okay.
So I was reading through it for the first time, and a demon manifested in her
Oh, wow.
in the midst of this.
So she was a leader at this point?
She was. We were looking at her becoming a leader,
Okay.
but that, of course, changed our plans. But in the midst of that, I said, this is real, and it's in the church.
Right.
Why shouldn't it be? It's in the Bible. It's in the synagogues.
Right.
So anyways, I called and said, I need you guys to come here. Glenn was a part of that team. And I said, you need to come here and to teach us and to bring us through a freedom appointment as a church. So we did that.
Okay.
And off of that, I became convinced that this is something we need to volunteer in, that we as pastors do not realize spiritually what's happening in front of us in our congregations. So my wife and I and 2 other women went to training, and we were trained, and I went through a freedom appointment. So that's what brought us here. But that's been a 3.5-year journey.
Yeah.
And that I believe we're on an edge of amazing healing. And the battle's getting tougher right now. So
In America.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what brought
That's
us.
very rewarding.
It has been very rewarding.
Yeah. And you started volunteering at the ministry after Wayne, but especially with my wife.
Through
'cause she
your
worked at
wife, when she
Set Free.
showed up at my door
Yeah.
after I spent 4 hours with her on that first appointment. Then she said, I think you would enjoy working at this ministry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I went to the training with him and went through a freedom appointment myself, which was wonderful. And here we are.
One of the things that God has brought in this is you've been able to help other couples.
Yeah.
My wife and I are one of those. I just think of the verse, what Satan, Joseph is talking to his brothers in Genesis. What Satan, or what you intended for evil, God meant for good. What would you guys say to those dealing with this in their own marriage? The statistics are really high.
They are.
That even in Christian communities, this is...
It's amazing. God has made this mess, our ministry, and we do love to work with couples who are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
There's freedom to be found.
Absolutely.
I would say there's hope. I would say don't give up. We were able to just take our family of 20 to the ark, and we took our picture in front of the ark. And as we walked in, and the ark was before us, where God saved Noah and his family, God saved us, our marriage, and our family. And as we walked into the ark and our kids were there, and I looked at my husband and I said, I am so full of joy right now. My heart is so full. God is so good. And I said, if we would have divorced, this wouldn't be happening right now. Where would we be? It would be a mess.
Yeah.
I am so thankful the Lord gave us the grit, the perseverance. It's all about Him. We couldn't do this on our own.
Yeah.
And I would say there's so much hope. Get help.
Right.
Get accountability. Forgive. My grandma, I didn't know she died when I was 4, but my grandpa abused her and she stayed with him. And my sisters told me that she would always say, God hates divorce. As long as you're not being hit and abused in a physical way, obviously you need to be safe. But she has encouraged me. Her life has encouraged me, and I didn't even know her. So that's where the generational thing comes in. She has no idea
Right.
how much I think about her and the legacy she left me because she loved Jesus. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
Especially for men. They feel very isolated, very alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. There is healing in Christ Jesus, and there are men in this world that knows what you're going through and are willing to walk.
Yeah.
And I know they're hard to find at times, but I think the doors are opening. The Holy Spirit's opening up those doors. Somebody once said that the church is never going to see revival until this sexual immorality is dealt with.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think we as men have to step up and be the spiritual high priests of our home, of our churches.
I agree.
Step forward.
Absolutely.
But I think, too, things specifically to men, I would say to this, striving harder, which is always your first effort. I can handle this.
Yeah. I got it.
Only gives way to sin having more and more way to you. So the key is humility. It is repenting and bowing before God and being honest with God, and then being honest with your wife and seeking out a discipleship relationship that you can get involved in.
Oh, that's so good. I want to pause you on that note.
Yeah, go ahead.
The humility aspect.
Yes.
I think to that point, one of the ways you grow in humility is by exposing all of your ugliness to somebody else.
Yeah.
Kind of forces you to realize, confront the ugliness inside, and it naturally humbles you, I believe.
And I agree. And I think that's foundational to a discipleship relationship because, Stephen, you have taught me those things while I've watched you. You have taught me about humility and openness and honesty. And a discipleship relationship is always two-way. You both grow.
Right.
That's the cool thing about it.
Right.
And we both had pride. We both had to let
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think another thing is what's important is to put guards on your electronics and areas.
Yeah.
Don't drive around the donut shop anymore.
Right. Yeah.
If there's an
Right.
area of temptation, stay away from it.
Right.
If you need,
And that's the humble thing to do because
is.
you realize I've been shown, I've seen in the past that I can't handle this.
yes,
So I'm making wise safeguards
Yep.
that are humbling. I had a flip phone for a while.
Yep.
Hated it. Very humbling.
Sure.
But honestly, it was a good reminder to me that this is the wise thing to do. This is the strong thing to do.
I like that. It's the strong thing to do because he says that it's in our weakness that his strength is made known.
Right.
And men have such a difficult reality with weakness.
Right.
They don't realize. Just like I met a guy recently as an upside down hat that says servant on it. And he says the way that Jesus looks at things is upside down from the world.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with weakness.
Yeah.
Is that it's actually our superpower.
Right. Right.
And we don't realize
Right.
it starts with humility.
Right.
But that's our superpower in life.
Right.
And so
No, I totally agree. That's
Yeah.
that's
Being able
awesome.
to work with the wives has been a humbling thing too, and I've learned from your wife. We've become really close, and it's been an honor to walk alongside of her.
I'm just so grateful for both of you guys.
and you.
In my wife and I's marriage.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be married if God hadn't, right now, if God hadn't worked through you guys to come alongside my wife and I and walk with us through my addiction and what my wife was considering, leaving me.
And she went a step further than I did, and she actually washed your feet, which is
did.
the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
encouraged me so much. What a
Yeah.
humbling thing to do.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say to guys is that there's going to be times pride's going to try to tell you in this time of control is that your wife is trying to control you. That's going to be a difficult thing to get over. But your job as one who's being restored is to humbly submit to that because she's not, the battle is not against flesh and blood. It's a battle against the evil one. So she or he is not your enemy.
Right.
So you've got to get that fixed in your mind. Second of all, you also need to realize that you need to earn back that trust.
Yeah.
Okay, it's so important.
That's a
Yeah.
big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a
It's a big deal. So, open communication.
Yep.
Date her again. Pursue her.
Right.
Let her know that she is important to you and that because she has been hurt so much by the feeling of, am I inadequate? Am I, something wrong with me that he needed somebody else than me? It's not about that. Go ahead.
I often would say to him, when this happens and there's a relapse, I would often say, I feel like we were in a battle together. We were on the front lines, and I was wounded really bad. I was hurt. But instead of carrying me off the battlefield, you left me there to bleed. And there I laid.
Right.
And it, I don't know how else to put it. I think that's how a lot of women feel.
Yeah.
And just deserted. So to earn that trust back,
Yes.
it takes time.
Yeah.
It's time.
First time she said that to me, man's heart is a warrior heart, right? Wild at heart, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it broke me. It broke me what I had done.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that as a picture. And that, it just, so.
And now he's my hero. Yeah. Yeah. God has changed us. He's transformed us.
And is changing.
And I love him more today than ever.
Yeah. It's amazing. The mercy of God is just awesome.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome. So, yeah.
What do you hope viewers walk away with from your guys' story, from this interview?
Sue said it earlier, but I think it's worthy of saying again. There are two hard paths for you. One, divorce is going to seem easy at first, but you're never going to get that arc experience that we had and see the 3 generations that we get to see in by us and 2 in front of us, walking, realizing that Jesus is the arc of our family.
Yeah.
Reconciliation is hard. It's hard.
It's painful.
Because it's work of archaeology. You're digging up the old bones, but God is teaching you how to feather off the dirt instead of taking an axe and chopping the old bones.
I was
and
good at
condemning.
chopping. I was
Yeah.
good at chopping and digging hard.
And so we recommend reconciliation. It's been hard, but to be able to see the fruit.
And it required you, as well as her, being willing to forgive you. You had to be
Absolutely.
repentant.
I had to receive the forgiveness. I had to forgive my wife
He did.
because she did demonstrate anger and bitterness toward me.
I called him
And I mean,
names. I said things I shouldn't
Yeah.
have said to you. Yeah.
There was times that I couldn't do
Threw
anything
a glass
right.
of water at you one time, didn't I?
Oh yeah, it was devastating. I went to years of counseling for that. But
I don't know. You're fully recovered.
But I think that, again, it just, you are not alone. Jesus is here. He manifests himself in reconciliation. He does. And there is healing in him. And if you pray and ask, he will bring someone into your life to walk with you. He will. He did in my life. You were my second discipler. Dave was my first in 1988. You were my second. And
I think you got that reversed.
no, well, that's the cool thing about discipleship is it's a two-way street. You give and take, and you both grow. And we have for your relationship with you. We feel like you're family. When you do things, we remember this way we used to do them. It's just crazy to watch that, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think of James, book of James. He says, do not grow weary of doing good.
Yeah.
For in due season,
In due season.
you will reap
That's right.
if you do not lose heart.
Amen. And the picture of do not lose heart is this. This is how I visioned it. It's the hands of God, and you lay your heart into his hands, and he holds on. That's how a person takes heart. They give their heart to Jesus, and he holds on to it.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
true.
It's not us holding on to him. It's
No.
him holding on to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really what
Yeah.
gets us through things.
Amen.
Well, thank you guys for being willing to share your story.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you for asking.
just so appreciate all you guys have been doing in the church that you're a part of, which my wife and I attend, the Peer Church. If anybody's looking for a church that's looking to invest in people and in the scriptures, the Peer is a great church. A shameless plug.
Who would have ever thought we'd go from porn to pastor? Because
Yeah.
he wasn't a pastor when this journey began.
Yeah.
He was an electrician. We've had a lot of different
He's an electrician.
He was a
jobs.
what?
Yeah.
He was electronics, right? Or was it?
Well, it was electronics, but
really? Okay.
Yeah.
I was an electrician.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
He's had a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's where we started.
Yeah.
Current all flows the same way, buddy.
Yeah. So in ministering at the Pier, administering to couples like my wife and I, and in ministering here at Freedom and Faith, just so appreciate your guys' willingness to open your hearts up, to open your story up to others so that God could use it in the life of people who are going through things that are similar, that maybe you're feeling hopelessness or despair. So thank you so much for telling us all about this.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.